slide. So Stacy's going to kick it off for us.
Yes. Welcome to Pod Experience. And we are going to share with you the things that we've learned along the journey for many years. We've done a lot right and we've learned what not to do. And so we're sharing our wisdom from the years of podcasting and video casting. And these are our emails. So if you have questions, you know where to reach us. And again, in the chat. So we're going to start with the top 10 and this first one. So to develop a podcast concept, that is really the beginning. A lot of people say, well, what should I even talk about? I mean, you really need to know what that is to be able to start a show. And a lot of people say, well, I don't even know what am I passionate about? I'm not sure. And I'll say to them, well, number one, what do people come to you for? What are some advice they ask you for? There's a chance that that is your zone of genius. So think about that question. And also think about what are your passions that you do in your spare time. Chances are that it's something people want to know. I mean, there are 3 million podcasts out in 2024, according to podcast statistics. And 54% of US adults now listen to podcasts monthly. This is important because there's growing competition in the space, but yet you have a voice that people want to hear. Your voice is unique and different. And so think about what is your slant, your experience. And so things that you can ask yourself is, what is your unique perspective and expertise that you bring? Who wants to know that? Who today do you talk to that would want to hear more of that? And sometimes it's just testing and learning and seeing who, who is actually like asking you questions. They're hungry for more. And then what gap does that topic, what's the unmet need? What is the gap? And ask people. And you could create a 1 paragraph mission statement to define that purpose of the show that you think you want to talk about, and then go ask people. They'll tell you. Anything to add, Elizabeth, to that?
Yeah, I think you should make sure it's something you like talking about.
Yes.
You're going to be doing it a lot. And it should be something that you have a little bit of expertise with. So Stacy and I would not be doing this if we hadn't both launched multiple podcasts and gone to conferences and been in this world. So, I mean, you could do research the night before and talk about things. And of course, there's all sorts of podcasts, right, Stacy? Like some people critique music, some people critique movies, some people I heard there's this one that's once a year. They go back and watch the same movie and they talk about it once a year, and that's their podcast. So, really, the sky's the limit. And there are ways that you can find out if there would be an audience. And that's part of your marketing journey.
Yeah, exactly. And for those that are in the chat that said they're starting another show, so not everybody here is brand new to podcasting, but they're new to maybe multiple shows. And so that's really the same thing applies, is figure out what you care about, what you love, what do people come to you for? What do you find yourself putting out on social media because you just love talking about it? That's a clue. And then ask people, give them an idea of what it is that you want to talk about. And they'll give you your own answers.
Right. So I have one podcast I do with my husband, which started as a radio show, which was kind of a backdoor way of getting into podcasting. And that's for entrepreneurs because he's a patent attorney and I work in his practice doing marketing. So we were approached by somebody's paid content. We don't get paid for it. Someday maybe, but to do a radio show on iHeart for entrepreneurs where we interview other entrepreneurs. And then I got my second one I started because I got this cat that was scratching its fur off and could not figure out how to find a solution for that. And so I started it with another woman who knows a lot about cats, does trap and rescue and all this other stuff. And we have experts on and we talk. And that's just the two of us sometimes it's interview. And then the third one was my passion project. It's a storytelling one. It's ghost stories that I used to tell my kids when they were little. And as we were talking to somebody earlier, I think it was Philip earlier, I do the audio and I go in and put overlay images on top of it using CapCut. So I have all three of those. And I mean, it is kind of addicting to start podcasts. And I have a lot of people that want to start podcasts with me, but I'm kind of full. And so I tell them, I'll try to help you find somebody to start it with you if you really want a partner.
So to the chat, I want to acknowledge that Gerardo, yes, AI can help you with ideas on what the concept can be. So that's a good idea. Whether it's a good idea or not is not what I'm going to comment on, but more of don't just take AI for, just for face value. Use your brain and ask people. So yes, AI is powerful for anyone to get ideas and brainstorm. So let's go to the second one.
So build marketing into your podcast. I think everybody's always asking, how can I differentiate my podcast? How can I get it so there will be listeners? So where you start with this is the title of your podcast. And for those of you who haven't done a lot of marketing in your careers or lives, when you're doing digital marketing online, you may know this for your website. There are two main customers that you have to worry about. One are the people that will listen to your podcast. But I would say almost more important for getting it seen are the algorithms that the search engines use. So Google and the podcast sites go through, they look at the titles of these podcasts, and if they know exactly what it's about, then they know the audience to offer the content up to. If it's very vague, like if I just put mine as Elizabeth Gearhart Speaks, they're going to look at that and they're going to go, I have no idea what bucket this goes into, because these are directories. It's like, the alphabetical directory at the library or whatever. And so they'll just downplay it because they don't know what audience to serve it up to as content to listen to. So when you are titling your podcast, put a keyword. A keyword is a word that really describes the heart of what you're doing into your podcast. So for instance, the cat podcast has the word cat in the title. My ghost story podcast I was talking about has the word ghost story in the title. And then the search engines can really find it, and your customers can find it too. Your listeners can find it too, because I don't want to go think I'm listening to something about how to treat a cat for an illness, and all of a sudden they start talking about what cryptocurrency is doing. You know what I mean? So I think that is the first place to start your marketing. And then the other thing I would say is when you're looking at your title and your concept, you need to look at other people's podcasts. You need to listen to them. So when I started the cat podcast, my poor husband and I were driving from New Jersey up to Boston. I made him listen to cat podcasts the whole way up in the car. I don't think he'll ever forgive me for that one. But you need to know what's out there and how yours is better. As Stacy was mentioning, you need to differentiate. So I think those are two places to start marketing. Of course, social media is big, but we'll talk about best places to advertise your podcast as we go through this. So Stacy, what do you have to add to that?
I would say, yeah, I mean, the SEO keywords is huge, and you don't need to know a lot about SEO other than the keywords that you put. Like, for example, in my own, customer experience is a highly searched word. So I use that in my title, I use that in my show notes. I use that in everything more than the acronym in my industry, which is CX. So think about your own acronyms. So my show, Doing CX Right, I will say doing customer experience right for the algorithms to be found, but you can still say your own industry terms. Just be mindful of the Google the Google searches. So I think SEO is really important. And then for other marketing, create the social media that you put out there and the hashtags. I think those are also really good ways to get found. I do believe creating a landing page to capture your email, the people that want to engage with you, that's important so that the the podcast hosting sites, which we'll get to, they do have websites, like a landing page for your show. But I personally rather bring people to my own website, which I'm going to put in. And Elizabeth, if you want to do the same, I'm going to put in the chat my landing page on my website so that you could see an example of my show that you can do for your own when you do your own podcast, where you can bring people to, because you want them on your content, not somewhere else.
Right. I think your website's a little different than ours for Passage to Profit. So I think yours is probably more relevant.
Okay.
So we'll do that. Yeah. And so you can also, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on this, but if you put your podcast on YouTube and if it's audio only, you can go into a program called CapCut and put a picture on it. So you get a video that you can put on YouTube. YouTube gives you amazing statistics for free. And you can really study those statistics. And also there's vidIQ and TubeBuddy, which I think you can get free versions. I think our vidIQ is free. It gives you all sorts of suggestions. So you post one video of what you think you want to do, and then you look at what vidIQ has to say about it. It'll give you a lot of marketing advice. And I just helped somebody put something on Spotify. So launch it from Spotify to the other sites. And Spotify now has a feature that says, put some clips here and we'll help you promote it. So the thing, it didn't have that last time I looked at Spotify. It's changing all the time. So the sites are trying to help you promote your podcast. And I would make use of that as much as I could.
It's vidIQ, right, Elizabeth? VID.
vidIQ.
Yeah, it's in the chat. So I just answered that. Okay, great.
Okay. Do we want to go on to format? I mean,
Yes.
each one of these steps could be a full meetup in itself, but we just want to give you a quick overview. Okay.
Yeah, but I do encourage everyone in the chat, if we talk about something that's really important or, of question, do put it in the chat and I'll make sure I take a note so that we know what's of interest to dig deeper in. This is more of an overview of the top 10. So thank you, Dave, for putting in the .com of vidIQ so people can see it. Yeah. Okay. So number 3 is choose your podcast format. So your format affects the audience engagement, and there's many different to choose. There's solo, where you're just speaking. There's your co-hosted, kind of like what we're doing now, Elizabeth and I, but it's not a podcast, but it's co-hosting this format. And then there's interview style, which is what we both do as well. And you could decide to do a combination. Like my whole show is interview, but then sometimes I either don't have an interview lined up, or I just want to share my own view of a podcast interview that was so good that I wanted to do my own show that week of it. So you can really combine it. It's your show, it's your decision, test and learn. And you can decide on video or audio only options based on your goals. I believe that Elizabeth will chime in soon to say that we both believe video is worthwhile to have your show on YouTube and the audio. It's really easy once you're recording to put it on both. But if you're camera shy, then just start with your audio. And the other thing is you have to decide how long you want it to be. Most when we look at the statistics, most shows are between 15 minutes and 45 minutes. 30 minutes to me is the sweet spot. But if it's a solo show, you might find it'll be more like 15 minutes. Depends on the topic.
Right.
I'll say one other thing and then pass it to you, Elizabeth, which is The key to it is my favorite terminology is TAR. Test, analyze, adjust, repeat. Test,
Right.
analyze, adjust, repeat. So that way you know what you're comfortable with, what gets people engaged, and then see what you're comfortable with. Because if you're comfortable and authentic, people will gravitate to your show. What else would you say, Elizabeth?
I think those are all good points. I will say I do interview only. I do that's the Passage to Profit radio show. I do interview mixed like Stacy does mixed in with just episodes with my co-host. Well, that's actually different than Stacy. So we interview someone sometimes. Sometimes it's just the two of us. And then I do the storytelling one, which is a beast all by itself, which I wouldn't really, unless you want to do a storytelling one, but it's a lot more work. I love the interview one, and I'll tell you why I love the interview format. First of all, you don't have to always have someone, like I just said. If you have a co-host especially, you could just do one without them, but I have met so many incredible people through the interview format, and if you're using it for business, it is such a great way to make connections. So you may find somebody, maybe on LinkedIn, I go on LinkedIn all the time, that you would like to be able to network with and share with. And yeah, you can ask them to friend you on LinkedIn and follow your whatever you have on LinkedIn. But if you reach out to them in the messages and ask them to be on your podcast, that's a whole different thing. And then you get to actually talk to them. And what I love about the interview style podcast is I get to pick the brains of some of the most intelligent people I've ever met, right? So you can bring whomever you want and network with them and have a real conversation with them and then share it. And I think for me that's really powerful. Now, it depends on the reason why you're doing the podcast, what format you would use, and how you would go about it. A lot of people just like to do it themselves, but for me, I prefer the interview. So,
Yeah, I mean, I would never have met these authors and superstars on my show had it not been the podcast and interview style. So think about it as it's a relationship tool that absolutely will serve you in so many ways. So I'm glad you brought up the interview again. As there's a question, well, I'll save some of the questions to the end because we do want to get through the next steps.
okay, so let's go to the next one. Set up your podcast equipment. Okay, a lot of people are saying just do it on your
Yeah.
phone, or they have been. I think though podcasts are moving into a more professional arena now. I think it's okay to take like a snowball mic, buy a mic for 50 to 100 bucks and plug it into your computer and wear headphones if you're doing interview, especially. If you're just doing it yourself, you don't need the headphones because you don't have any noise coming back at you. But if you don't have headphones on when you're interviewing somebody, the sound isn't very good. Audio is crucial. Uh, I'm using a $400 mic right now that's hooked up to a mixing board that we use for recording for the radio show when we don't go into Manhattan to do it. I don't think you have to go that far, but I do think you need a good mic on your computer and then a quiet. So this mic is a directional mic. I don't necessarily need a quiet room because it only picks up what I'm saying and my face has to be right on it. But there are other types of mics that you do need to soundproof your room, like the little one that would plug into your computer, you need to soundproof your room. Now there's another kind of mic called a lavalier. I know you guys have probably seen them. I don't know if you know the name of them, but they hook onto your shirt. It's just a little mic that you hook onto your shirt. And those are good for interviewing people, but you have to be careful that they don't move around too much because they pick up everything. Now, that can be hopefully edited out if you get a really good sound editor to help you, or if you're really good at that stuff yourself. So it just depends on what you're doing or where you're going, what type of mic you use. And then a quiet room is always good, even if you're using a directional mic. We were at iHeart one time recording the radio show, and those are all expensive directional mics. And somebody was making a point and she was pounding her hand on the table that the mic was on. And the producer came running in. He's like, "Would you quit pounding on the table? It's Mike's picking up everything." So you do want to be conscious that you are recording and that you're trying to get the best audio possible. And I'm going to talk about a feature Buzzsprout has when we get to that point that helps you with that. So I would say quiet room, good mic, good computer, and don't forget to record. That's a biggie. did that once. Anything else, Stacy?
Yeah, I do. My biggest one for you, and if you've been to our events before, you've heard me say, take the mic out of the box. It took me 6 months to start my podcast because I was afraid of so many things. So take the mic out of the box, order the microphone. It can be as simple as like a little, blue Yeti. There's so many things you can do, but the point is take it out of the box. Don't let the fear get in the way and start setting it up in a small way just to get started. It doesn't have to be extravagant.
Oh, and one other thing, if you're doing video, if you do want to record video, and if you're doing it on Zoom or anywhere, this is really hard, but you have to look in the camera, not at the person, and you have to have the
Oh,
person look in their camera. Otherwise, get a separate camera if you're together. Did you just say, oh, Stacy?
that's so key. Like it's something people forget that they look down
Hmm.
and it's hard because you want to see the person. But the experience, and remember, I'm in the experience business, and so are you, all of you, that yes, looking at the camera. I mean, here's an example now of me looking in the camera versus me looking at Elizabeth. Now I'm trying to maneuver a couple different controls here, so you'll see my eyes change, but that's a great reminder.
And I'm getting it tomorrow. I just bought a little camera. It's not really a camera, it's a webcam, a little webcam that hooks into your computer with a USB cord and a couple lavalier mics that hook in. And this USB camera tilts, you put it on the table and it tilts up to catch your face. So I'm hoping that that'll really work so I can interview people and have them have a camera that is easier to look into. But yeah, that's the biggest problem with Zoom or anything is people not looking at the camera. So, but if you don't look at the camera and you just want to capture the audio, we have solutions for that too.
Mhm.
Okay, should we go on to the next one?
Yes. Record your first episode. Oh, that is so exciting and scary to people. And so once you took the mic out of the box, then it's recording. Now people are like, well, where do I record? Our favorites are Riverside FM, which I'll put the link in some of the things we're talking about. I'll put it in the chat for you to go look at. And I think there's some promotions I was able to find that'll help you offset the trial cost or no cost. So I'll add that here. But just to continue, Riverside FM is really helpful for its stability and local recording. Zoom is an option, but Zoom, you're recording and you need internet stability. Whereas, like Riverside, as an example, you're recording locally at your desktop. So then it will go up to the cloud when you're done. You're not dependent for the internet stability because that's bad. If you had an interview and then it didn't save and there's problems, then you can't get that back. Whereas Riverside
Right.
lets you. But in the chat, I see a comment about not liking Riverside. They don't allow for virtual backgrounds.
Mm.
They're all updating. I mean, maybe something's not available today, but they will be another time. I would say to you, pick your battles. Like, like I'd rather have the interview and know that I have it recorded at my local computer and then it goes up to the cloud than Zoom, where there's, even your guest may have a bad weather, something, and then
Right.
you've lost what you've had.
Well, and I think what Riverside does is it records each person's
Yeah.
audio separately to their own computer, or I don't know if it's their own computer or to the cloud, but it records each audio separately. So even if the other person freezes up, it still gets all their audio. Whereas Zoom sometimes does that. But I will say we tried Riverside for Passage to Profit where we had 5 people and it didn't work. And I think that there's a limit to the number of people, or this was like a year or two ago. Maybe it's better now, but there was a limit to the number of people that it could really handle. Because the last guy that came on, it said something like, "You've used up too much space already. You can't come on." And he's like, "I've never used this before." So I think and maybe they've improved that. These things are changing all the time, but it is, I think, better at capturing audio. Although Zoom has gotten better too. Zoom's constantly improving.
Yeah, I mean, if you're really afraid of technology and you're used to Zoom, start with it. But and I'm just putting Riverside in the chat for everybody because I think that it does give you some ability to get the free, like all the best bells and whistles to try through the link I have. But I do encourage you test it because you also through Riverside can create all these different clips. You
Hmm.
can download it quickly and put it on social media. You don't need to be techie to know how to do it. You can grab like 1 minute and it will put it in the dimensions for a reel or TikTok or whatever, or the regular size for Twitter, X, LinkedIn. So think about not just recording, but what you can do with that episode. The other thing I want to tell you, and Boomcaster, yeah, I mean there's all different ones. I'd say test and learn. We just happen to like Riverside. Um, the other thing that is important to know is that there's a statistic by podcasting careers that only 49% of podcasters release 8 episodes. Less than 7% reach 100. The point of that is people do give up. And so, I would say that's why it's important to get comfortable with the recording platform. Create an outline of what your episodes are going to be and do test recordings to show that things run smoothly. Because that way you're not giving up and you do get past some of the things that people quit for, and it takes time, and just be okay with that. And get try out the different recordings.
Stacy, I really love what you just said. Do a practice run. Really, I mean, I don't know, maybe you're not as anxious about some of the stuff as I am, but when Richard and I do the Passage to Profit show, we have copy printed out and we practice together. And we don't read everything, but we practice before the show. We know everything about the people we're going to interview that we can find out online. We have an assistant that helps us with that. I used to do it myself when we first started, but now we have the assistant. But then I a lot of times will practice just with Zoom or with my Mac software, just recording myself and seeing how I sound and trying to be better. And I think before you record your first episode, you may want to just run through it, even just in your mind, and practice it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to acknowledge, thank you for the other tons of people have just joined us. So welcome. We are on step 5 of 10 to record to recording your first show or starting another show. So
And
welcome.
we'll summarize at the end. I have a summary slide
Yeah.
with all 10 on it.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
okay. Do we want to move on to the next one?
Yes.
Okay. This is the one that I hate. I won't make any bones about it. Editing your audio and video. The tools to do this are getting better and better and easier to use as time goes on. And more places are having tools to use this. Now, when we get to the podcast sites where you can load your podcast, um, I use Buzzsprout with Danielle Woolley, my co-host for the Jersey Podcasts. And Buzzsprout has a feature called Magic Remastering, and it helps with the sound. So if you're talking like this and your guest is talking like this, it matches your volumes. So it really helps to have you have less editing. Um, I do editing on my Mac. People love Descript for video editing. It's you just have to kind of look at it if you're techie. If not, you can ask somebody for help with it. But it transcribes your video and lets you make changes using that. So very powerful program. So Stacy, any other comments on editing? Is she gone?
Did
Okay.
you hear me?
No, we
Oh,
didn't hear you.
okay, I'll repeat. I just put the script in the chat, which again has gives you some free trials. I think Descript to me is a no-brainer. It is really, really easy for someone like me who's not techie, that you put your podcast from anywhere you do, Zoom, Riverside, Boomcaster, whichever you love. And then you upload it into Descript, and then it will put the transcript like a Word document. So now I can actually delete, if I said edit your audio show and I didn't mean audio, I can take the word audio out, and it actually will allow you to use your own voice to re-record the word you meant. So it's like a Word document. It's literally copy, paste, delete, and then insert my voice here. So you don't have to redo the whole entire podcast. So check out the tools that we're sharing. And does Audacity do audio editing? It's just for audio, I believe. Yeah, Audacity is just for uh um it's not an editing tool, but they all have these abilities to click and make it sound like a studio, which is what Elizabeth was talking about. Same with Riverside, and Descript to me is excellent.
Well, and my husband uses DaVinci for auditing or for editing the videos that we do, but that's really complicated. And it took him a long time to learn it. So and he spends a lot of time editing these videos because we take feeds from different cameras and he puts them together and he puts branding on there and everything. It's
But they're
so time
new.
consuming.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
new,
it's
so I
so
don't.
time consuming. Yeah, I don't do that. So, I mean, I would
Yeah,
just use Descript.
yeah,
Okay, are we ready for the next one?
yeah.
Here we go. This is yours, Stacy.
So creating your artwork, this is probably a no-brainer for those who have been in podcasting or do any creative work, and that is Canva. It is our go-to tool for everything creative. There's awesome templates, but the point to know is that the statistics that we've read, 70% of podcast downloads happen on Apple Podcasts. And there are others, of course, but the visuals play a big role in
Mhm.
discoverability. So consider that. Things you want to be mindful of are like using bold, easy to read fonts for your title, ensuring that your artwork is recognizable even when it's small size. So if you're on your someone's on their phone, it's easy. Think about accessibility, and and then also think about your branding and those design elements, that they represent you in totality. Like your podcast is your brand. It's your personal brand too. So think about, how does your artwork reflect your brand, your theme, your tone? Is it clear? Is it appealing? And last is decide, do you want to do it yourself, or do you want to hire a professional on Fiverr, Upwork, additional? But Canva has amazing templates. What about
Yeah.
you?
Oh God, I love Canva. So Canva has amazing templates, and I think you don't want to put too much on there. So you want people to be able to see it, like she said, if it's small. Now, what a lot of people are doing that I think works well for them is putting their own picture on there. So for instance, I don't know if you guys know who Mr. Beast is, but he is the top YouTuber, I think, in the world. And he gives away a lot of money to people. That's part of the reason. He's this young guy. He does this outrageous stuff. Like, I'm going to take 5 guys and we're going to go camp out on this desert island for 5 days and see if we can get through it without killing each other. Stuff like that. Um, he always has a picture of himself in his thumbnails for YouTube. And he has other elements in there, but it's his video, and he has just like like 3 or 4 words that say what it's about. And like one of them, he had himself, I don't know, I think suspended over these sharp sticks sticking up or something. And it was like some challenge or something. And so it's eye catching, it's out there, it's him, it's a couple words. Uh, it's not a lot of like, oh, in this podcast, you'll figure out how you can live the best life possible if you just do these 3 things. That doesn't belong in the thumbnail, but I think we all know that. What I would do is look at thumbnails on YouTube and podcast covers. For podcasts, maybe similar to yours, maybe different, but just kind of see what catches your eye. And then using your branding colors, maybe kind of try to copy that a little bit. And if you're in Canva, you can change everything and you could do custom colors, everything. So I like doing all my artwork myself, but other people like to send it to Fiverr. And if you don't know what Fiverr is, it's FIVRR.com. It's an inexpensive place to hire professionals that do this kind of gig economy work.
Yeah.
Uh yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Should we go to the next one?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, podcast hosting. This is a big one that people always ask about. There are a number of different sites. Of course, Apple is pulling the usual Apple stuff where they make it really hard to post on Apple and get it posted everywhere else. The whole point of podcasting is you get what's called this RSS feed, which stands for really simple syndication. And what that means is you can put your podcast on Spotify, for instance, and it will transmit it to 5 or 10 other podcast hosting platforms for you with just just by uploading. You have to set it up first. So setting it up is kind of a pain because you have to have an account for all of them. I just helped someone do one on Spotify. I have one on Buzzsprout. I have one on Castos, and I have one on Libsyn. Somebody asked about video. Libsyn is good for video. It was the first one, I think, the first platform. And I chose it for the video, but other ones are getting video now too. Libsyn does charge you for data, so it's a little bit more expensive, I think. I love Buzzsprout because it has the magic remastering for the sound, but it also has a lot of educational information. It has a great blog. All of these have monetization. Spotify, we chose Spotify. It has a free version. I think Buzzsprout does too, but Spotify has a free version. And you know Spotify's not going anywhere because some of these little podcasting platforms come and go. And so we wanted to do a tried and true one. And so many people have used Spotify. If you have a question, you just have to Google it and you'll get 10 answers right off the bat. So that's kind of my advice. What do you think, Stacy?
Yeah, I think you hit a lot. I mean, yeah, there's so many. Again, test the platform you choose. Again, I'm into customer experience and user experience. So each platform has its own user interface. So go in and test a few and see what you're comfortable with because they're very different. And what I find really easy might be hard to you. Podbean, Blueberry allow for video hosting in addition to Libsyn. Yes, I mean, some have videos, some don't. So that's also part of the criteria you might want to consider. And test and see what you're comfortable. Because again, if you're comfortable with the platform and they make it easy, it's a low level of effort for you, you're going to keep doing it. And that consistency will help you grow. So they're all interconnected.
Right. So I agree with Stacy. And do you want video? Do you want audio? And how easy is it to set up and all that? I think it all goes into the decision. And honestly, this part of it, if you're more into the content than the tech stuff, I would just ask somebody to help you with this.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So the next. So get listed in podcast directories. So submitting to major directories is very important for discoverability. And each platform, as we talked about, Libsyn, Buzzsprout, Spotify, Castos, all of those, they each have its own submission process. Setting it up can take a little time, but once it's
Mhm.
set up, it's simple. You press a button and it goes to all the platforms. Apple does have the number one spot still in all the podcast channels, and you do need to set it up directly in Apple and to set that
Mhm.
up and some of the others. So again, the first time of doing those, it does take a little time, but you can actually either have someone do it for you, watch a few YouTube videos. They tell you, they show you how to do it. But it's again interconnecting the hosting platform for your show and those channels that you want to distribute to. And a lot of the, like Libsyn as an example, you would just upload the MP3 or the MP4. And once it's set up, you press the button and it goes to all of those locations. You don't have to go to each one every time
Mhm.
to post your show.
Right. So we just worked on Spotify. I was working with somebody, and for all the ones that they connect to, you have to go set up an account because it doesn't know where to send the data to if you don't have an account in this other directories, right? So if you want to go from Spotify to say Libsyn or something, you have to have a Libsyn account to tell Spotify where to send the data. So that's a little confusing. We did have trouble with Apple, and I think it's because she wasn't using an Apple device. Um, I have an Apple account, but I have a Mac that I use. So Apple's a little tricky. And then, so get help with that if you, and we're still trying to figure out how to get her on Apple. The other thing I would say is YouTube. Now you can send some stuff directly to YouTube, but I post to YouTube separately just because I want to make sure my video gets on there right. I don't know what they put on for video. Like if Buzzsprout sends it to YouTube, Buzzsprout's audio only. I don't know what they do about the video. They probably pick, I don't know. I don't know exactly how they do it. So still upload to YouTube separately, although you don't have to. And especially if you have something on Libsyn that's a video already, I think you can go straight from Libsyn to YouTube.
Yeah, I do YouTube separately also. I'm not sure if there's truly a best practice, but I think because we're used to doing that, maybe I haven't tried it. Um,
Yeah, I will say that one statistic I recently read was that, oh, can you mute everybody? Let's see. Um, One statistic I recently read was that
I don't.
68% of people are getting their podcasts from YouTube now. So you do need to figure out a way to put your podcast on YouTube. Even if it's audio, you can put a picture with it using CapCut software. It's YouTube is a really important force. So I would say figure that piece of it out and put it on YouTube. I know the one that I just launched with somebody, she got a whole bunch of views on YouTube right off the bat.
Mhm.
So,
All
okay.
right.
Should we go on to the next one?
Yeah.
Do you have the controls to mute everyone, Stacy?
I
Let
I
me
don't see
let me see if I can.
no.
Let me see. Let's see. Well, if everybody could just please keep
Yeah.
themselves on mute. Oops. I went backwards. Um, are we at step 10? We are.
We are,
Launch.
and then we'll get to questions because I see them
Yeah.
coming in.
Launch and grow your show. So grow your show is easier said than done. That's probably the biggest question everybody has. And that seems to be changing a lot. But launching is basically just making it public, right? So you already have it on the podcast directories. You just set it to public and off it goes. Growing your show, one thing that I've read a few times, and even recently was I know somebody that does a lot of media, and I'm hoping that he'll come on and be a presenter next year on this meetup. But he said that, and what I've heard too is that you want to advertise, if you're going to spend any advertising dollars, advertise on other podcasts because people are already there listening to podcasts. They're in the habit of listening to podcasts. If you, I think you should still use social media, but I don't know that I would pay for social media advertising because they have to go from social media over to the podcast. So if I'm listening to a podcast in the car and we're driving 6 hours, and I hear an ad maybe for a podcast that sounds really interesting, I'm more likely to download it. And the difference between downloading or not, and everybody wants to get downloads. And this is something I'm going to bring up in a class I'm going to be teaching later, is if you download it, you can listen to it offline. So I don't think the general public understands that. If you stream it live, you have to be on the internet and you have to pay for data. So you really need to encourage people to download your podcast so they can listen to it anytime without using up data. Uh, Anything else, Stace?
Yeah, so my tactic has been going on other people's shows as a guest and then talking about the things um, that I am either passionate about, or I'm coming up with a book that's launching next month, true story. So I'll go on there to share about the book, not hard selling, but talking. I think that's a great way to podcast swap. That's a great way to
Mm-hmm.
grow. And also, yeah, social media. I mean, when you have a guest, this has been a success tip for me, is when I have a guest on my show and they have a big following, they'll share the show because they were on it. So now not only did I reach my 20,000 on LinkedIn and communities and such, they shared it and they had thousands of followers. So now that's really organic growth. And I encourage you to use your show, not only just relationship building, but it's a great social strategy.
It really is. So there's always new ways to launch and grow your show. One thing that we didn't touch on, Stacy, that has been like drilled into us at every single conference we've gone to over and over and over again is don't worry about having a wide net, having a show about everything where you think you'll get listeners from everywhere. Really try to find your niche, because there's like millions and millions of people in the world. There's millions of people listening to podcasts. If you get 500,000 people, so really just zero in on what you want to podcast about. It makes the marketing so much easier, and it's better for the search engines, and it's better for your audience. So for instance, if you want to do a podcast about flowers, maybe flowers is the first word in the title. But what if you really want to focus on roses? Maybe you zero in on roses. And there's so many types of roses. And maybe you zero in even further, and you'll still have an audience, but it'll make it so much easier to do everything else because you know exactly the type of audience you're looking for.
Yeah, and I also want to say feedback is a present.
Yes.
So one of the things that I'll do is I'll go on LinkedIn. You can do any social channel. I love LinkedIn because my audiences are businesses. And I'll do a survey on LinkedIn and ask several questions, and people will vote. And that gives me some information about content, what interests them, even debatable topics. So use social even as a way to ask questions. There's voting tools, and that's amazing, as well as the people on your show. If you collect their emails on a landing page, let's say, or you do newsletters, ask them also what's important to them. Are you meeting their needs, not just your own? So that's
Right.
important as well.
One last quick thing. If you choose to do audio only, which a lot of people still want to do, I mean, who loves being on video? Not me. But you still need to make short video clips somehow. So when I was helping someone go on Spotify, we uploaded her audio, and there was something underneath that Spotify had that said, "Okay, now grow your show, post some video clips here." And I told her, I said, just take your phone, do 30 seconds. Just do some little clips that you can put on social media, put on Spotify, put other places. And Buzzsprout lets you do a visual soundbite. Just make sure you have some sort of video that you can put in the mix, because marketing really, you have to have video these days.
One more thing about video. So I saw in the chat, which is a nice idea, that you can convert your MP3 to your MP4, sorry, your MP3 into MP4 so it can go on YouTube. But keep in mind, I think it's the one image video link. But keep in mind that, I mean, you can put a picture,
About to wrap it up.
you can put a picture with the audio so it can play on YouTube, but YouTube's meant to be engaging. So, I'm not personally a big fan of just putting your audio on podcast on YouTube. I am more of a fan, or I would encourage you more to make clips out of it and then use those as little snippets to bring people to your show. That would be my recommendation. All right, so
Well,
maybe let's get
yeah.
to questions.
Okay, let's go to, I do want to do the
The top
recap real
10?
quick.
Yes, yes.
So in case I know people have been coming and going the whole time, these were the basic 10 steps. So take a screenshot of that if you want to know what they were. We are recording this, we will have it available for you. So yes, so let's go to questions. Do you have questions from the chat?
So let's see. If anyone has anything specific, and a lot of people just came in. So welcome, and these are the topics we talked about. So if you have something specific, you can put it in the chat. Let's see, I'm going through here. Description. Is it better to start a different podcast? You already have an audience that may be interested in this new topic. Why would you start from zero again? So actually, why don't we open it up to let people, I would say maybe raise their hand, or we can go around because I think people have.
Can you do that? I have to stop the share if I'm going to change the controls. Okay, so Gerardo raised his hand. Do we want to let people talk?
Yeah, let's do that because I think they can ask their questions better than my reading a text.
So let's see. So allow all participants to unmute themselves. Okay.
Good.
So I think you guys can talk. So
Gerardo.
Yeah, we'll start with you.
Hi, thank you for this podcast. It really means a lot. So I'm just wondering if you exhaust a topic, like do you need to start a new podcast if it doesn't fit in the description original of the original podcast, or if you like deviate from the original topic like a lot?
I would.
Well,
We listened to this podcast. It was hilarious. This guy started a Facebook group. I know this is a little different about chickens. And all his followers, like, all want to talk about chickens. And then he decided to switch it to cryptocurrency. And everybody was furious with him because his followers were not interested in cryptocurrency. They were interested in raising chickens in their backyard. So if it's that different, I would make it a separate one.
Yeah.
And like a follow-up question. So like in case that you want to like talk about like let's say like farming, you should like frame it as farming from the beginning, and that includes like chickens and pigs or whatever, right? Instead of like kind of like being constrained to a specific topic from the beginning.
For farming, that is such a broad topic. I would try to narrow that down, honestly.
So like your followers will always follow you, right? Like since you have the rapport with an audience or whatever, they may or may not like. I mean, you won't start from like zero, like starting a new podcast, right?
I would let my followers know that I'm starting another podcast. I mean, so on the radio show that Richard and I do, I talk about my podcasts every time we record. And so I'm talking about it on another podcast, and I would put it in my social media. So I would definitely let your followers know. And we have an email list. So we let our followers, the email list people know about this, every topic we do on this, even though they may be different sometimes. So yes, I think you should, if it's greatly different, I personally would start a new podcast, but I would reach out to all my followers and say, hey, I started a new topic. Why don't you take a listen and see if you like it? And then try to get people that are specific to that topic as well.
Thank you.
There's a question, could you give the name of the podcast talking about the raising chickens?
I don't remember it. I'm sorry. It was actually a Facebook group. It wasn't
Okay.
it wasn't a podcast, but I felt like it kind of fit in with this because they switched gears midstream and everybody went, "Hey, what happened?" So, so I see Rachel has her hand up. Can we go to Rachel?
Thank you for all of the information and in advance for my question. So I already have the concept and I'm doing a lot of the work and I'm going to be doing the interviews to right size my expectations and other people's. um, how long did it take each of you to kind of understand the tech pieces and put them in place so that you actually got the episode online? Because
Nice.
most specifically, I'm going to be doing a couple Zoom interviews already starting next week and then thinking about clips, but ah,
I
overwhelmed.
know. I know. Stacy, do you want to tackle this one?
So say the question again. I lost you.
Okay, the main question is about how long did it take each of you to wrap your heads around the bits of technology so that you could get an episode or audio video clips
Yeah.
from the interview to online
Yeah.
and
Great
discoverable?
question. Great questions. So I highly encourage you to shut your eyes and ears to all the noise, because there's so many AI solutions. There's so many platforms. There's so much advice out there. So pick one that you hear here or in the chat. Pick one to record your platform. Pick one microphone. Pick one way to edit. Test it out, because otherwise it's like AI tools right now. There's ChatGPT, there's Claude, there's Gemini, there's Copilot, right? Like it's the same thing. They're endless. And then what happens is it stifles you from not doing anything.
Right.
So just start, pick one that we talked about here and test it.
I would say one I would suggest for pulling clips out is Opus, OPUS. I think it's opus.ai. The only problem we have with Opus is it takes a while to upload the files to that. But it gives you short clips and you can do some editing in there. And it also gives you an SEO score. So if the higher the SEO score, the better it is to put it out on the internet. So I can't really answer because I did everything kind of in steps. So with the Passage to Profit, iHeart did everything for us. And then we hired people for social media because that was driven by my husband's law firm. Jersey Podcasts, I have Danielle Woolley is just an amazing co-host, and she did a lot of the tech. The one I did on Libsyn by myself, I already knew a lot. So, um, but
Yeah.
I would say it takes a couple days. But I love YouTube. I watch YouTube videos. I can watch a YouTube video and just follow it along and do it from that.
Look, we both, Elizabeth and and I should have answered your question directly. There are many people we know who do all these different steps. So if we don't do it ourselves, we know people who do it. So reach out to us, because we can tell you who's credible and trustworthy depending on what you're looking for.
Right.
Okay?
Okay. So should we move on to Jensen? Has
Yes.
has their hand up? Nice picture, by the way. Are you there, Jensen? Do you want to unmute? Let me ask you to unmute.
Is it
Good
Jensen or
morning.
Janine?
Oh,
Janine.
Janine. No wonder. I'm sorry. I can't see that far. Janine, I'm sorry,
Hello.
Janine. Hi.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for this wonderful presentation.
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we can
I'm
hear
sorry.
you.
I had my Bluetooth on. I had to switch it off. So I have a question about the board. How much do you think we should invest in a board in lighting, roughly?
Starting out, I would say not a lot. Now, what you could do, this is not a shameless plug. I'm in New Jersey. It does not look like you're in New Jersey. I have my own podcast studio. We're remodeling it. It's almost done. So people are going to be able to come up there and use my lighting and my board and my microphones and my soundproofing and all that and pay a fee to do it and see if they like podcasting. There are a lot of podcast studios around. They don't have to be expensive. The prices are all over the place right now, by the way. So I would shop if you're not sure you're going to continue with it and it seems like a hassle to set everything up, I would shop for a podcast studio. Hey, I see Jersey in the house. Yeah. I would shop for a podcast studio and go record there. And they offer different levels of service. So mine is going to be kind of soup to nuts. They might just say, here you are, go at it. Or they might help you use the equipment. You might pay a little extra for that. But I think, setting up the equipment can be a challenge. And I'm actually going to hire a consultant to get the video and audio exactly right in the studio before I rent it out to people.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have time just for a few more. So if anybody else has a question, I see more people entered. So welcome. All right. Go ahead. I don't want to mispronounce.
Is that Santu?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Hello.
You were talking about YouTube earlier and how important it is to get onto YouTube because the statistics of people going there to watch podcasts. Any information about TikTok as a, alternative or in addition to?
Oh yeah, last month we actually had Kay Allison, who's a TikTok expert, and she uses TikTok to drive people to her business, and she's gotten unbelievable success. We have that video. If you want it, email
Yes.
one of us. We can send
Okay.
you the link to it. That was such an amazing episode last month. We had Warren Miles Pickup, who told you how to turn casual visitors into loyal customers, and Kay Allison, who told you exactly how to use TikTok and what she did to go viral and to get clients. So yeah, we're happy to send that to anybody that asks for it.
Could you put your email in the chat? I don't know if I have your email.
Oh, sure. Well, did you sign up with your email for this event?
No, I signed up through Eventbrite.
Yeah, that would have given your email. So, but I will put my email. I'll put both our emails in here. But we will be sending a newsletter summarizing this event and announcing our next one. So you
Yeah,
can
I don't think I'm on your email list because I had to scramble at the last minute to go to Eventbrite just to book for this particular Zoom room. I was panicking because sometimes
Oh.
sometimes Eventbrite will close the ticket sales like before it starts, and I was like 1 minute late, and I'm going, oh, I hope I can still get the ticket. So yeah, it wasn't
Oh,
through your email. I don't think I'm
I
on the
am
list.
so sorry about that. So there are emails.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and so before we end, I do want to say that we're putting together our schedule for next year. So I'm trying to get somebody who is in media who has tried advertising on a lot of different places to advertise his media, and I'm hoping he'll come and talk about what works or doesn't work. And then we also have plans for taking your podcast on the road, which Stacy already does that. I'm putting together some equipment to take mine on the road. And then we'll go from there depending on what people want.
Yep. Do you want to put the YouTube here, Elizabeth? There's the question.
Oh, let me see. YouTube is, I think it's let me see. You know what? If you can hold on a sec, I can go try to find it online.
And do you have the QR code for them?
I don't have the QR code. What did I do here?
Hold on. I think I have it.
Let's see. I think it's Pod.
I need to share my screen with
Yeah, go ahead
you.
and share your screen. I quit sharing.
Okay, hold on.
Now, we didn't post the last meeting on YouTube because we felt like there was so much great information on there that we want to interact with the people that are asking for that.
Yeah. All right, so while you're looking for the YouTube link to see all the past ones for anyone missed, Can everybody see my screen? There's a QR code.
Mhm.
Okay. Can you try the QR code? Because if you give us if you fill this out, we will make sure we'll have your email so that we notify you if you're not on our list to know. Oh, you can't see my screen? Can you see it now? Okay, great. Thank you for that. So yes, please use this QR code. Not only does it give us feedback, it also tells us what you were interested in learning more about, and it gives us your email so that we can notify you when we do these monthly, as well as send you the YouTube recap and other tips that'll help you. So it's important you fill this out. That way we'll know who you are.
Okay.
Let me know if you have any issue, and we'll share the YouTube link in a second. But let me know if you have, I can't see anyone in the chat. So if you do have an issue, Elizabeth can see it. I can't see it right now because you're
Oh,
full screen.
oh yeah, I know. I wonder, I didn't realize that it did that. Let me look at the chat. So, chat. Okay. So, okay. So I put the YouTube link in there
But
in
before
the
you do that,
chat.
Elizabeth, can everybody's, does the QR code work?
Yeah.
Somebody said, oh,
Yes, it does. It does. I'm filling it out now.
oh,
Okay,
okay.
thank you.
Oh, if you guys could give us feedback, that would be so awesome.
But it's giving us their emails so we can make sure that they know the updates of when these are.
Right. Right. So the next one will be in January. We don't have a date yet. As I said, we're still trying to get a speaker lined up, so it will depend on his schedule. Some people can access on their phone. I did put the YouTube link in here. It's Pod Experience 41. I don't know why the 41's in there. But it's Pod Experience.
Oh, is that your channel?
Yeah.
There should be a little picture of Stacy and me on there. Yeah. So we haven't really, I know this is YouTube and podcast creators community or podcast and YouTube. We haven't really done anything with this YouTube channel. We're keeping it, it's public, but we're kind of keeping it just for people that come to our events. So we're not trying to promote it or anything. So don't base your opinion of our promotional skills on this YouTube channel. Okay, here's something.
I don't know if you saw this. Some people are on their phones accessing the Zoom room, so they can't scan the QR code when they're on their
Okay.
phone. Do you have an exact
Uh,
link, or just copy the link
Yeah.
from the URL from Canva or
so
something?
Yes, I'm
here,
doing it right now. Hold on.
here's a really good, how do you know if you should start a podcast? You know, that's a really good question. If you like to talk, if you're passionate about something, or if you want to use it to promote your business. So I know a lot of people are using podcasts to like be famous or get a lot of followers and get sponsorships and get advertising revenue and all that. But businesses are using it now. So I recently took this monthly event that Gearhart Law does. It's an educational event and turned it into a podcast. And the reason I did that, we put it out there and people, and it's on YouTube. So people come to it. We advertise it quite heavily through Eventbrite. But when you put it on a podcast directory, it goes out far and wide on all these directories. It's on the internet and a bunch more places for the search engines to find. And you also have a different audience. So for us, we have the event and people come to it on Zoom. We have it on YouTube, but now we have podcast audience, people looking for maybe a lot of stuff we do is about intellectual property because that's the kind of firm my husband has, but also we do a lot about investors, like how do you get investment money for your project, that kind of thing. So it puts it on a whole nother place on the internet that you aren't already on. So if you're a business and if you're trying to sell a product, a podcast can really help you sell a product, especially if you have a video podcast. So I actually wrote a chapter for a book where I talked about how you would do this. And assume you're selling dog toys. You put little videos of yourself playing with your dog toys that you're selling. And that goes out on a video podcast. It could even be an audio podcast, and you can direct people to your video or to your social media to see what the toy looks like. But you're reaching a whole nother set of people that you don't reach just with your website or just even with YouTube. But you have to be willing to put in the work, the time. You have to be passionate, and it is work. Oh, I see. Santu, do you have another question, Santu?
Yeah, just a follow-up question to what you were saying about businesses using podcasts to promote their businesses. Do you think it would be viable to promote and sell your business if your business is about podcasting, encouraging people to enter the field, offering courses about podcasting, that kind of thing?
Oh,
Coaching.
yeah, that's what Stacy and I are doing. And yes, I do think that honestly, I feel like if you're going to put yourself out there as a podcast coach, first of all, you better have your own podcast. I mean,
Yes.
I was researching cat podcasts, and this woman had a cat podcast. She said, "Well, I don't actually have a cat. I have a dog." I'm like, "What?"
Oh, wow.
But yeah, if you want to be a podcast coach, you better have a podcast or an event like this or something that shows your expertise. Um, so can we move on to Tara? Tara, did you have a question? Tara M.
Okay. I think I unmuted.
Yeah. I like
Okay.
your picture, by the way.
Oh, I thank you. I did have a question about how you were saying for finding your title for your podcast, you want to make it more so it could be kind of algorithmically pushed out to people who would be in that niche.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
so what would be the thoughts of like branding? Like if you were to try to make yourself a brand, would you want to put like your brand name in the title, or would you rather just more stay in like a how to write as your title?
So do you know what keywords are?
Yes.
Yeah, I would make it keyword heavy. So if you have keywords that describe your brand, that would be good. But really, Google and the other sites now are always looking for those keywords. And I would put
Okay.
I put the keyword as up front, as close to the beginning of the title. When we started this last February, we had Rob Greenlee as our first speaker, and was he had a podcast before anybody knew what they were. And he knows the industry and follows trends. And what he said at that time was, your keyword has to be in your title, and the closer to the beginning of your title, the better, because he doesn't even know if the search engines read the whole title. So, when we had the radio show was Passage to Profit, which was fine for the radio, but when we turned it into a podcast, we had to add Road to Entrepreneurship because it's about entrepreneurism. And I keep arguing with my husband, we should put Road to Entrepreneurship as the title of the podcast, and then like colon Passage to Profit after that, because nobody knows what that means. That was great for the radio because, it just comes on, but people are going and looking for podcasts. So you have to have what they're looking for. And the closer up the front, the better.
All right. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Okay, Stacy, do you have anything that you want to say before we wrap up?
No, just again, how important your feedback is. I see, I just admitted some more people in the room. So,
Thanks, Demi.
yeah, so I'm putting here the QR code, which is a link, and that will help us know who you are so we can keep you updated and share the videos when they're available and other things that you might need. So, and tell us what you're interested in because we will make sure they're part of our content
So I see that.
calendar.
Oh, okay. So Dave Campbell is okay. So Santu1. So if we don't have your email, please send it to us. If you signed up through Eventbrite, we should have it. Please send it to us so we can send you the wrap up of this and the links to the YouTube videos too.
Yeah, and rather than send us individually, like I said, if you use this link I just put here, it will give us your emails and we will take care of adding you because it is hard when you get lots of emails. I don't want to miss it. So that's why this is helpful to just give us your feedback, give the email as well at the same time. All right, everybody. Thank you so much.
Happy holidays, everyone. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.